I've been asked by a YouTube subscriber here to go over the torquing. Now, torquing is a concept that I've talked about a lot. I've displayed it in the 6G film, hands film. It's also been depicted in many tutorial films, but let's go over that torquing just a little bit more. Now, torquing is one of the problems that most people have when they first start learning Kyusho. What happens is they think, first of all, that it's a pressure point. It's not a pressure point. But when they think it's a pressure point, they look at the diagrams, they see it on the surface, and they try to hit the surface. And they try to hit it in the correct angle and direction. Now, that's a misnomer. You have an angle and a direction, okay? So you're going to hit a target on this angle at that direction, okay? As opposed to doing it from another direction. But that's a concept that is not fully translatable into Kyusho skill. What you need to do is use the word and the thought and the ideology and the methodology of trajectory. Trajectory is not just hitting at a correct target or a correct target at the correct angle and direction, but it's also where you send the message to. For instance, if you hit a target here, you might want to send the target or the message there. That's an important concept that most people don't get, and why it's so frustrating for them to learn Kyusho and gain the skills rapidly like we do in Kyusho International. We're very tuned in for the targets, the tools, and the trajectory. That's our 3T system of instruction, and it works out brilliantly because the people can learn this skill and learn the Kyusho a lot faster with this idea in their head and also the torquing in their hands. So let's get into the torquing a little bit. Now, torque, if you know, is a spiraling energy, and a spiraling energy is a very strong energy. You have a linear energy, you have a spiraling or torquing energy. Now, the torquing energy is much like a screw. When you twist the screw into the wall, has a lot of power, okay? And it just digs right in. And it separates all the material surrounding it to get to the full depth. And that's what the torquing's benefit is. Linear takes a shot at it and hopefully has enough power to penetrate past the surrounding materials. But sometimes what happens, like a nail going into a wall with a hammer, sometimes the nail will go in and then bend because you are off on the angle that you tried to attack the target. Also, the materials of the surface underneath. Now, the screw displaces all of that. So does the linear shot, but the linear shot displaces it in a very small pattern, whereas a screw going in has a much more pronounced channel when it's going in of displacement. Now, let's take one hand in particular that will work with this. Okay, let's use the blood pool hand, Kashukiken, and this, Kasushiken. And this Kasushiken, okay, otherwise known as blood pool hand, is a great torquing weapon. Now, a lot of people have seen the videos and they don't pay attention as much to the torquing that was taught in those videos. And that they just use their arm to shoot the hand in ballistically, whether it be with a striking action or whether it be a striking action like a battering ram this way. But that's not the torquing action of the 6G hands. The 6G hands are formed, in this one in particular, by rotating the hand into it, okay? And as you rotate, what happens is those knuckles are pushed in, almost like you were taking a knife and sticking it into the individual. Now, when you're doing that, what happens is the contact area, okay, meets, say, the skin and the muscles. And what it does is it torques in, is it separates the muscles, the surrounding structures, the protective structures for the most part by nature, and it separates them so they can get to the real target, which is the nerve. And that sends a message into the nerve in a sharper, shorter transition of energy. And it's not ballistic energy like this linear energy, it's that torquing energy. Now, on contact with some targets, what you're going to do is you're going to twist into it this way. Other targets, you'll twist into it this way. And whether it's up or down or sideways, all depends on the target, the situation, and a lot of different variables. However, again, that will separate the two tissues and make sure that instead of trying to push through that, okay, where it's stopped by a lot of different surface, what it's going to do is separate and allow that energy to be transmitted directly to the underlying nerve structure. It also, when it goes past those supporting surface tissues and the protective tissues, what it does is it pinches that nerve against a harder object like a bone, an underlying bone. And that's where you get that very acute message that's sent through your nerve system, through the peripheral nerve that you're attacking, into the central nervous system, which is the spine and the brain, and finally up to the part of the brain that causes the physiological dysfunction. And that's what a lot of people miss, and a lot of people dispel. The Kyusho is because they try to use pressure points, okay, which are a fictitious entity. You cannot dissect a pressure point out of a human body. You can dissect a nerve out of a human body. So when you learn what the nerve is, how deep it is into the body, and we're going to be doing a series on how deep into the body you have to get in the underlying surrounding structures as well. But that's at a later date. But this torquing is going to enable you to get past that and into the real nerve, a real structure that has a real function in the body. It can cause a real dysfunction in the body, much like if you just hit your funny bone on the table. Okay, you know the intense pain and the shock of electricity and the uncontrollable actions of your body after you hit one of those. Okay, and it's the same thing when you use Kyusho. You can hit these nerves in many different places on the body, and it's not all over the body. You have to have good accessible routes into the nervous system, and there's some places that are just better than others, and some places that would be a waste of your time. All right. Again, if you had, say, a pressure point called large intestine 10, and you tried to hit that, and the person had a fist, that muscle is going to constrict so tight that you're not going to be able to access between the nerves to get to that. So we show you the correct targets that you can use at the correct times. All right. And we're going to show you it's not the pressure point right here. It's the underlying nerve in between those two muscles and right above the bone. You're going to get between those muscles, get to the bone and pinch the nerve against the bone so there's an acute message sent to the brain. Let me mention one more thing and I'll end this video because I would like you to work on the torquing of that hand to get into some of your targets. Now, the idea of striking that nerve or getting between the tissues to get into that nerve, when your hand comes in, again, it's going to be separating those muscles. And as it separates those muscles, it's going to penetrate deeper than rather than try to push its way through. So that's the torque that you want to be able to work with in the Kyusho, the 6G hands, and that will make your skills that much better.